just open it up for questions and go from there. Excited to talk about our staff a little bit, some of the updates we've had, and any other questions you guys have for me.
How about talking about the new coaches on the staff, just a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have that finalized. The first thing that happened with our staff is promoting Jay Lucas back in, what was it now, a couple months ago. And Jay's been so steady for me. He's got great experience, but he's been just a great addition the way he is with our players. He's been our defensive coordinator. He's really taken that to heart. He's done a great job with our defense, great with relationships, and he always tells me the truth. And that's what you need when you're a head coach. You need people that are going to tell you the truth, the way they see it. But he's been terrific. Bringing Will Avery back on staff has been just such a great thing. He's been a part of our program the last couple of years as a graduate assistant, but you have a guy who's been a lottery pick. You have a guy who has played in the NBA, is a big-time player here in college, knows what Duke is all about, and so to get him back is great. And then to bring Emmanuel Dildy here. Coach Dildy and I've known Emmanuel for some years. He's from Chicago originally. Okay. And just to see how he's grinded, every step of the way, started off at Kennedy King College, junior college, and you ask any of the coaches he's come across, whether it be at Missouri, Valpo, Northwestern, Loyola, Oklahoma, they rave about him. Great with relationships. He's a big-time worker. You talk about a guy who's really excited to be at Duke. He's really excited, and he's brought a great energy to our staff. And of course, Coach Carroll, Chris and I have been together for some time now, and he's been a rock for me. He does so many different things for our team. He's been in charge of our offense. Obviously, he knows what Duke is all about, and to bring that staff together has been great.
Was it intentional to go outside of the brotherhood? And I think Coach Dildy has coached wings in the past, and Emil was coaching bigs. How does that kind of shift your responsibilities?
Well, it wasn't intentional. It was just about finding the right fit, whoever that person was. And, Dildy's worked with a lot of different positions, wings being one of them. Chris has worked with bigs in the past. He's done a great job, very versatile. And so Chris will be primarily with our bigs. E will be with our wings, and in the short time, just getting to know him, just his attention to detail is great. He'll really help, Mark Mitchell and TJ Power and Jaden Shute and those guys. But the thing we do a good job of is continuing to overlap too, where there's interaction with different coaches, where it's not just only Chris with Ryan Young, or if it's if Emmanuel sees something with Ryan, he can help him too. So, but that's how we're going to structure it.
John, you mentioned the coordinators. Emil was kind of in that both and player development role last year. Where does Emmanuel slide in? Is it player development also?
Yeah, well, he's naturally all three of those guys, and then Will. It's been actually different for me to think about having more coaches on the floor. We've never really had graduate assistants here. That just hasn't been something that's worked. We actually have a couple for the first time, but having Will Avery in addition to Emmanuel, Jay, and Chris, you get a chance to really personalize it more. And so from a player development standpoint, the way we're doing it by positions, we're able to get to really where, for our guys, the development is the best place in the country here. That's our goal. We feel we have the personnel, the structure to do it, and now the resources. When you think about, it's better if you're worrying about 2 or 3 guys as opposed to 6. Just the attention to detail you can have, the individualization of it all is really important.
How much is that related to, just players looking to go overseas or go to the G League? There was a time when Duke was seen as the top one-and-done destination, and now there's so much competition for that space.
Well, I still think we can be looked at that way, where it's whatever time span you're here, whether it's a year, 2 years, 4 years, this should be a time for growth on and off the court. And so, Coach K started it, but we've done a great job of, we don't practice for 3 hours. We practice hard. we get it in, and then we always make sure there's individual time. I think that creates buy-in from our guys. When they see they're getting better naturally with their skill level, with what they do in the weight room. So that's never going to change with us. And the way that we play translates to directly what they're going to be asked to do when they're in the NBA. And so I think that's a huge advantage of the guys we're recruiting, coaching, and it creates really good buy-in.
John, Coach Dildy worked with Chris Collins for several years at Northwestern. Did you and Chris communicate about your potentially hiring him? Does him having worked with a Duke alum, did that smooth his transition?
Yeah, Chris and I definitely spoke about E. I mean, just knowing, I've known him for some time, so it's not like I needed somebody to tell me, you know, who he is or what he's all about. But talking to Chris, as close as we are, you know, he's like a brother to me. As close as we are, I already knew the opinion he had of him. So that made it easier. That made it really a seamless transition. I've had to correct some of the biases that he's told me through the years about, like, the best player in Glenbury North history and all the BS he can say to him. I've had to really bring him back to reality since he's been here. But besides that, those conversations have been helpful.
Are you looking to fill that final role?
Probably not at the moment.
What's it like to have so many guys back from last year?
It's different. it's different. I'm excited because as it's obviously great having 8 players back, and you know, we went through a lot last year, so there's a base to build from. But I think our team is also very different. You know, we're going to have to play differently. At the same time, we have some things that were really good that we did last year we need to continue to improve on. So as long as we all understand that, that's not the same kind of team. It's totally different. We need to be better. We can be better on both ends of the ball. But it's exciting to have gone through some things with some of these guys. And you know, anytime they make I look at some of the decisions some of our guys had, whether it's NBA or college. I've told you guys before the amount of other schools that call, if a guy didn't play as much here, they're getting calls to transfer, you know, throughout the season, after the season. And for all of them to make that decision to come back here, I think it's just doubling down on the commitment to each other. We've done the same thing with them with not bringing in another transfer. It's been our group, and I think we'll be really together because of it. And it gives us a great starting point, and now the hard work begins.
How is Kyle doing health-wise coming off his hip surgeries?
Kyle's doing great. Started to do some one-on-one. Hopefully he can progress to some 2-on-2, 3-on-3 in the next couple of weeks, and get him back playing 5-on-5. But really there's no limitations other than just progressing him where he can play 5-on-5 here in the next few weeks. So I'm excited. Still feel like this is deja vu a little bit. I want to see our whole team together. And I think this will happen earlier, but definitely excited to get him back out there.
I think we've heard a little bit about him saying the benefits on the podcast, or how the benefits has been for him. Have you noticed any of those? Has he articulated some of those to you as well about what you see in the aftermath?
Well, they don't call him two-hip flip for nothing. I mean, he can bend, he can move his feet, he can jump. He's more explosive, and it's really remarkable when you think about the season that he had, despite not being able to move in the way that he's capable of. So I think he feels freer. Not I think, I mean, he's told me that he feels freer, more explosive, and the biggest thing right now is just getting his shape back. You know, naturally when you're off for that long, it's going to take some time to get back into it, but he's new and improved flow.
Do you think that extra explosiveness could help him be more of a rookie type this year, maybe adding that dimension to his game?
Yeah, it's an area he needs to grow in for sure. And you know, he had our entire team had the benefit of playing with Derek, where he could just clean some things up. And whether, I don't care what position he's playing, with his size, he should be great at protecting the rim, using his body, knowing when to take a charge versus when to go vertical, when you can block a shot. And I thought, watching back our games from last year, I thought the progression he made at the end of the year was really good. It was a good step. And now with the extra, the health, the athleticism, I think he can take a huge jump for this year.
John, what have you noticed about the progression of the freshmen as far as comfort level? Has anyone kind of separated themselves, or what have you noticed from all that group?
Well, the summer is great to, you use the term, comfort level. I think that's what the summer is about, to get comfortable, knowing your way around campus, getting to know your teammates, getting to know us as coaches. But the fall is really as you start to carve out your role and carve out your niche. And so as far as separation goes, that hasn't happened yet with anybody really, because we haven't put anything in. Like, this is the time where we do that. But they've all worked hard. They've been as consistent as any group with how they work. We've had all the groups we've had work hard, but they've been consistent day in, day out. When they're here, you can bet they're in the gym. But that's just how they're wired. And that's the thing I love about them. Off the court, they're loud, they're cocky, they're always talking smack to you. And I think that's a confidence I want them to keep, while still understanding they have a lot to learn and a lot of room for growth.
How do you feel like you're doing as head coach in terms of the off seasons? Do you feel like it's starting to get a little easier, it's starting to get a little more relaxed? Do you still feel like it's just like your first off season as a head coach? It's nonstop, go.
It's, I don't really consider having an off season, to be honest with you, because it's recruiting season. It's we have to get our schedule. There's always something going on. I do think I have found a better balance of knowing how to take care of myself. You have to take care of your family. You have to take care of your guys, of course, and the team and the staff. But I think balance is key. You're never going to have full balance. I mean, it's all about the team, and you figure out how to do everything else. But I think I've gotten better at that, and it'll take some time to ever perfect it, if I ever perfect it.
John, what have you thought of the ACC expansion talk, or lack thereof, with Cal and Stanford, and where basketball still fits into the conversation?
Yeah, well, I think as far as basketball goes, it's, especially here, especially with what Duke basketball has meant to the ACC, I don't know that it's, talked about in the way that I think it should be. I mean, you think about the brand, you think about, the stage, the views, the clicks that Duke basketball gets, that there's a huge value to that. And as far as the ACC realignment or expansion or whatever happens, my trust is with Nina and President Price. I know they're on it. It's a really difficult time. I know it's very unsettling. It's hard to predict what's coming next, and I think I'd be naive to sit up here and say nothing's going to happen. I think things will happen in the future, but we need to focus on what we can control. And for me, that's being the best program we can have. I'll tell you, with what other sports are doing here, they've done an incredible job, specifically Mike Elko with our football team. I think he's an incredible coach. I'm excited to support those guys this year with what they've done. I think all of us at Duke should do the same. And that's really how I feel. Just put my trust in Nina and President Price.
John, you mentioned a few times how close this team is. How did the Chicago trip help with that?
The Chicago trip was incredible. We kind of put together this trip with the idea of getting away from here, just to bond, connect, learn, grow. It went even better than I could have imagined. Some of the people we met, some were Duke grads, some weren't, but just the experiences they've had in the world of business. For our guys, I don't care if you have a long NBA career, at some point you want to learn these things, and it's better to do that now. So that was great. I think I had to respect a little bit more for understanding what a great city Chicago is. I don't know that I had the respect in the beginning. About halfway through the trip, I heard some guys walking down the street and they were saying, I would do Chicago again. And Chicago's pretty good. So that meant a lot to me, just for them to see where I'm from and the area. And then a special part was some of the former players that came back. Some I knew about, some were a surprise. But to have some of those guys come back or meet us in Chicago and talk about what it meant to win a national championship, I think that was a big deal. To talk about some of the experiences they've had as professionals, and then for Jason to come back with all that he is going on, just to talk to our team and to be around, really cherish our friendship and what he's done, what he's meant to do, what he's meant for our program. And it's a big time thing when somebody does something without even asking. And that's what he did in that case, which is pretty special.
John, speaking of former players, some players you coach are getting ready to start play soon in the FIBA World Championships. Are you communicating with these guys? Any chance you're going to use your frequent flyer miles in the
No.
Philippines? Yeah.
Not going over there, but it's special, you know, for both Brandon and for Paulo to be in those games. And, you know, Paulo, he went through, past couple of years, he had an interesting decision to make, whether to play for Italy, whether to play for the USA, and both would have been great opportunities, but, I mean, come on, he's playing on the national team at age 20, and he's playing, like he's actually playing, he's not just on the team. And so for him, the growth opportunity to learn, they have an incredible coaching staff, the players, I think it's great for him. And then for Brandon, just to continue to establish himself as one of the best players in the league. Proud of both those guys. I'll be watching every step of the way, rooting for the U.S. of course, and making sure Tyrese knows, you know, where I stand. We'll be going back and forth about, you know, who we want to win. Oh, Jack White is playing too.
Yeah.
And he's talk about what a job he's done since he's left. And he's had an incredible career. I remember having a conversation with him before he came to Duke that we couldn't promise any playing time. And all he said was he wanted an opportunity. And he took that opportunity, ran with it, played on some of the special, you know, a couple special teams while he was here. That 18-19 team in particular, I think his injury actually really hurt us that year. And then to be an NBA player on top of it. So proud of him.
I think Team Canada is also represented in this.
Can't believe, don't tell RJ I didn't mention him. RJ's, Canada's has some talent. You gotta watch out for them and what they do. So it's pretty special. You think about all the different players we have in it. Yeah.
How much has the future of the ACC entered into recruiting as you're dealing with these prospects now? Is it intense? How are you handling it?
You know, it actually hasn't come up at all yet. And I think, you know, our recruiting coach, it happens year to year. And so for us, there's no impact right now. You know, can there be in the future? Of course. But for right now, they're more concerned about playing time. You know, they're more concerned about, you know, what does it look like playing the stage at Duke? I don't think that's changing either way. Now, do we need to continue to adapt and make sure we're still the same level of, not even the same level, but more in terms of views and all that, of course, but it hasn't come up at all.
John, outside of Kyle, health-wise, how is Christian doing, Mark, how are sort of the rest of the guys doing health-wise?
Yeah, the rest of the team, good health. We're getting those guys back the next couple days, but everybody's in really good health. Yeah, nothing, short answer, nothing to complain about.
That Chicago trip, going back to that was supposed to be an NIL, man. It seemed like that got taken out of the mix at the last minute. What happened there, and then how has the program's approach to NIL evolved over the last year?
Yeah, you know what? It's frustrating when you try to do things the right way, and you try to put your guys in a position where they have an opportunity to take advantage of their NIL the best way that they can. And I think the hardest part in all of this is you don't know what you can and can't do. There's a lot of gray. And so with anything that we do, we call ahead and ask. And but those, you may ask something 3 months ago and it's a yes, and then you ask something now and it's a no. And so it's constantly evolving. I think that's the toughest part as a staff and as, you know, as a coach, when you're trying to do things, everything the right way and above board, but the goal line continues to move. And I would hope, NIL is one thing, but also decisions should be made for what's best for our students. Like the fact that some rules haven't changed even when I was in college. Like we talked about development earlier. Our players get 4 hours a week with us. 4 hours. Like that's it. And you can't give me a good reason. It used to be because you would worry about coaches practicing too long in the summer. If you practice too long now, they're going to leave. They're going to transfer. So they're all dying asking us to, can we work out more? Can we get in there? They're going in on their own at 6 in the morning. So that rule needs to change. It can't be for 4 hours in the summertime. We have 4 hours for them for 4 weeks before practice starts. It needs to be more than that. They want to be coached. They want to be pushed and developed. and we need to continue to adapt. So for me, it's frustrating. On one hand, you have things like that. On the other hand, I respect, at the end of the day, that's something that wasn't our decision whether to do or not to do. That was a decision for our players in conjunction with the company they were working with, that they weren't able to put it on. But at the end of the day, just tell us what we can and can't do. We'll live by that. And then same thing, that's key, making sure we're doing what's best for our student athletes. They want to be coached, they want to be developed. Let's continue to make those decisions in the right way also. So that's the way I see it.
Coach, with so many key returning players coming back, including sophomores, have you seen anyone in particular step up in a new sense of leadership? And do you anticipate maybe having more than one captain this year? Yeah,
we're probably going to have more, and we haven't made any final decisions, but our guys really look to Ryan Young too. Ryan is very vocal. He's the ultimate teammate. Like when you talk about only caring about winning, he can score 1 point. And I remember telling him several times last year, I'm starting Derek. Like Derek's ready, and I said, Coach, I agree. Like that doesn't happen. And so his selflessness is really carried over to our team. Tyrese has taken more of a leadership role coming back, just with what he went through. I think he can have a lot of empathy for our freshmen because he just went through it. And then of course Jeremy with his experience, those three guys in all different ways have done a really good job of just leading, communicating, setting the tone for what we need to do.
Talk about offense. What you've seen so far in separate practices. What do you think this team's strengths and weaknesses are going to be as far as scoring the ball in different ways? Maybe different from last year.
Yeah, well, I think from just the overall standpoint, I don't think we're going to break a record for dunks this year. We're not this high-flying team that's like what we have with Zion and RJ and Cam. That's not this team, but we are really skilled, and I think we're a really good shooting team. I think we're tough, smart, and so knowing shot selection is going to be a big thing. What's not just a good shot, because we can put 5 guys on the floor that can make tough shots, but what's the best shot? And that's something we just have to get a feel for each other. And it's also a team with how we can play that can play faster. And that's going to be a big thing for us, whether it be on makes, but especially misses, where we get out in transition and put pressure on the defense. But, look, I fell in love with Duke basketball when I was a really young kid. Game was a little bit different then, but I flash forward to those 2000 teams, and Chris Carrawells, the Mike Dunleavys, Shane Battier's, Jay Will, Chris Duhon, where they broke an assist record. They're just doing this, drive and kick. And that would be really the goal for how we want to play. Just really sharing the ball, unselfish, and not just being a jump shooting team. Getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. And of course, when we have our shots, we're not going to be afraid to shoot them.
Anything else? All right, Coach.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks.